Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
My guest now is Paul Stone. He is the founder and chief executive officer of Colonial Metals Group, a company that excels in helping folks maximize their retirement assets and savings through secure and effective planning and by utilizing precious metals like gold and silver. But Paul is so much more than that. He's not a trained economist, but he's a brilliant economic analyst. And he joins us to talk about our current economy, our future economy, and where we are headed. Paul, I can't resist asking you off the top. President Donald Trump says just a couple of days ago that he would like to see us do away with the income tax, the federal income tax, entirely, and finance the government through the revenues generated by tariffs, the way the government was funded up until 1913. What's your thinking?
Yeah, I love that idea. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Nixon or Lincoln who, thinking ingenuitively thought, oh, give me a financial edge over the South. I'll start income tax on anyone dealing with federal lands or works for the federal government, and that'll give us a little financial edge to spend more than the South. Outspending your enemy is a, tried and true way to win a war. And I thought they gave it a 2-year drop dead date. And obviously when 2 years came around, they renewed it. And here we are today with a government that spends $1.4 trillion a year on its own payroll. So I'm a huge fan of going back to things constitutional because I love the idea of living with a developed government, community, and country off of the mindset of those who freshly left socialism and monarchies in Europe when our founders fought for this land to be ours.
Well,
I like a small government. I like a tiny government.
Yes, indeed. It's the first thing that attracted me to American politics. If you go back to Barry Goldwater's book, The Conscience of a Conservative, a small government that does only those functions absolutely necessary rather than the expansive government we have today. Look, I have written 2 books on Richard Nixon. He was my political mentor. And I candidly admit that the 1971 decision to take us off the gold standard, to close the gold window, as they say, could be the single greatest mistake of his presidency. Now, the sad truth is it was Texas wheeler dealer and Secretary of the Treasury, John Connally, that he was governor who was actually wounded when President John F. Kennedy was slain, who persuaded Nixon over the objections of Arthur Burns, who was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, a very wise man, to take us off the gold standard. And this has, according to you and many others, has had repercussions right to the current day. Talk to me about this.
I think the easiest way I've ever come up with in helping people draw quick attention to the significance of what he did is the same thing. The gold standard is the same thing to our financial world and the sanctity of our currency and the navigable future of the generations to come is the same thing. The gold standard of that financial system is like the moon to our planet's oceans. with no moon. This is such a magical place to live. With no moon, we'd never have met. You would never be able to sail the oceans. There'd be 200, 300-foot waves everywhere. No one would ever live anywhere near a beach. Nowhere. You could never get down to the ocean. You would never be able to use it. We never would have sailed across. There'd be no Columbus. The world might still be considered to be flat because it's that gravitational pull on our planet that keeps the oceans calm. It keeps them navigable and predictable, the currents and everything that has to do with the ocean and how life comes out of the ocean for the rest of the ground dwellers up here on the surface of the earth. It's a hell of a relationship. When Nixon took the gold standard away, he removed the moon from our financial world, meaning there's no longer a holistic, wholesome force that keeps things right-sized, keeps conversations based in reality. Almost every conversation you'd have when it comes to the government and business would have to do with money being expended. And so when you can't have crazy conversations about, building out bathrooms in government and school dwellings to include folks who don't know what sex they are and all that money you'd spend, one, there wouldn't be the money for that conversation. And two, you wouldn't have that conversation. We would continue to not be such a confused society today. We would have been streamlined. The government would have stayed right-sized. We would have stayed in power, and real decision-making could have gone on like it had gone on for thousands of years in between the camps of the society and those who govern society. So it was beyond destructive. We're going to see eventually just how destructive that decision was, because you can now, beyond the normalcy that departed when he broke into an episode of Bonanza and told everyone he was doing, one, the decision's born out of a lie. So there wasn't years of research going into this. Alan Greenspan said in a thesis paper as he was departing the portion of his life from being a student to being, an executor of things, in his master's thesis, or maybe it was his doctorate, that any financial system without gold involved is lunacy. Lunacy. Now let's take that back. What does money involve? Everything. Your salaries, everything you enjoy, things you'll save for, things you'll cherish and hopefully one day have, right? But it keeps society kind of the same in the way that we don't have extremism where people are so wealthy, it's mind-blowing, but there's no understanding how they became so wealthy when everyone else is just working for a living. Now everyone hates their job because it'll never produce enough earnings for them to feel like they've made it in life or ever to even get ahead. Because the other thing that he did is slaughter the American family. You caused wage growth to slow behind the increase of the cost of living. But for the thousands of years of countries using gold and silver as money, your wages grew faster than costs. So by the time you get married, you're young, you could afford a house, you could afford a baby. Mom didn't have to work. And by the time you were 40 years old, you were rolling. Your income far outpaced the cost of living beneath you. Once we left the gold standard, the cost of living jumps up ahead of wages. And now 53 years later, August 15th is the anniversary date of that evil decision. 53 years later, 40% of our country doesn't earn enough money to have to pay taxes. There's struggle, poor people everywhere, but just dying inside. There's no shot for them to ever, they know it, ever coast, ever be able to just catch a breath. Many people in this country are working 2 or 3 jobs. And the worst thing that happened to the family system is mom had to go to work. Now, women might today choose to go to work. That's fine. But they were forced to give up their job that they'd had for thousands of years of being a mother when babies came around. So imagine this, the heightened craziness around the topic of abortion. There would hardly be the level of abortions needed today if moms were able to stay at home because dad's income was enough to cover the cost for the family. So if she got pregnant, boom. Well, honey, we're having a baby. But these days, it's, oh, my God, what an inconvenience. I didn't plan for this. I can't give up my job. I went to school for all this time to have a career, and now I have to put that on hold to have a baby. So abortions wouldn't be anywhere near the zesty conversation it is today if Nixon had. There's so many things. I could go on and on.
All of my smart friends seem to be diversifying their portfolios to include not just gold, but gold and silver. When we come back, I want to talk to Paul Stone about that, and also about the fact that he's working on a book titled 1971. We've talked about it quite a bit over cocktails. This is going to be an incredible book, folks. It's not just about gold. It's much, much broader than that. If you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Paul Stone. No, we're not related, but we could be. He is the chairman and chief executive officer of the Colonial Metals Group, and he wears the coolest shoes you've ever seen. We'll be right back.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Roger Stone.
You know, with the current administration moving swiftly towards digital currency, that's where your paper money would be no good, would no longer be legal tender. And with the wild spending going on in Washington fueling inflation, I can't think of a better time for you to move quickly to protect your retirement, to protect your retirement nest egg or your IRA. All of my smart friends are doing it by diversifying their portfolios with precious metals like gold and silver. And the one company that I trust entirely to do that is Colonial Metals Group. Now, folks, if you go to freegoldguide.com/stone, that's freegoldguide.com/stone, they can answer all your questions and tell you why protecting yourself by acquiring gold and silver is just common sense.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
Folks, we're back, and we're talking to Paul Stone, who is the founder and chief executive officer of Colonial Metals Group. As I said before the break, many of my friends are diversifying their portfolio, protecting their nest egg, their retirement, by investing in gold and silver. I owned a tiny bit of it. I like it because you can hold it in your hand, because it's a real asset. It's not paper. And if you're interested in this, let me urge you to go to freegoldguide.com/stone, freegoldguide.com/stone. Paul's company will give you a free analysis of your current portfolio and financial situation, and they can advise you on how to make shrewd decisions regarding gold and silver. Paul, you told me the other day over lunch that you thought if Kamala Harris won this election that there would be a surge in those seeking to put gold and silver into their portfolios. Talk a bit more about that.
Oh, thank you so much, Roger. And thanks for having us. And we love this partnership. My main job, I work for you. I work for the listener, the American, that's sensing there's some issues here to be concerned about. And I'm trying to bring awareness to what that solution is. So gold and silver is a solution to a problem. What's the problem? Well, first of all, people start thinking, I got to safeguard my money. Oh my God, we live in a world where we have to safeguard our money? Where's the threat coming from? It's just, I don't know. It's just, things are going up so high. How do they stay there? What's the threat coming from? It's coming from the government. Reagan said it best. The government solutions are worse than its damn problems. So extrapolate that out for 53 years where they can print all the money they want to solve their problems. Here you are. Ta-da. So what they're doing, though, as everyone gets upset and feisty about the money printing, the debt. First of all, in your mind, stop calling it debt. Roger, if I borrowed $1,000 from you, we could call that debt because I'm probably going to pay it back. You're going to go to sleep every night going, Paul's going to pay that back. No one's paying back $35 trillion. So stop calling it debt because you're putting it in the wrong category. It's just theft. It's just outright theft from the future values of our dollar. So the dollar now, the next thing you want to do is look at it as a resource. Stop thinking of it as money because the government's not treating it like money. They're treating it like a resource. Now let's pretend the dollar comes out of the ground. Let's say we're mining the dollar. The government's has pulled now 97% of the value of that mine out of the earth. It would be a cavern so vast you could park every plane in the world inside of that hole. Vast, trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars. And the dollar now, that mine, only has 3% left to be yanked out of the ground and thrown into the economy to prop everything up tomorrow. So there's a drop-dead date on how much longer that resource can provide you with all the comforts and luxuries and the value of your retirement savings. Eventually it goes to zero. Hyperinflation kicks off, and then you have a firestorm raging through the componentry of your financial world. This is what I've studied and read, so it's not my idea. I'm just trying to verbalize the likelihood of this because it's happened before. You're dealing with a math problem. Scream and yell all you want at the TV. It isn't going to change the math. So the way gold and silver helps people is you're relocating your savings out of harm's way, out of the dollar. You're no longer dependent on the dollar burning at the hands of the government to prop up everything you have. You're moving it out of the dollar and into something the government isn't screwing around with. And it can't be made in a lab. And it can't come out of the ground really any faster. The world is scurrying around looking for gold and silver everywhere it can. Typically, a new gold mine, you discover it today, you'll be getting gold out of the dirt 10 years later. So it's really hard to find. And you think it's everywhere? It's not. Because 70% of the globe's covered by an ocean. And it's really hard to convince investors to dig for gold and silver on the bottom of the ocean. So that's never going to happen. So it's extremely limited. And yes, so if Kamala wins, I think what happens is the exhaustion sets in. The stone cold sobering of, oh my God, 4 years of Biden, now 4 years of Kamala, we're done. Hope is not a plan. It's something, but it's not a plan. And so if she wins, if she's the one headed to the White House in January, I believe we're going to see a line across the state. Right now we have a line easily across the county for people moving money to gold and silver. But we'll be living on the surface of the sun in our industry if she wins here next week. Or whatever, 9 days from now.
It seems to me that two strong reasons that one would invest in precious metals like gold and silver is because this administration seems hell-bent on moving us to some kind of digital currency. That means your paper money would no longer be a legal tender for any transaction. You'd be given a card controlled by the government. The government would control your money if you go to buy groceries or gasoline or whatever you're buying. Whoever controls that card gets to decide whether you're allowed to make the purchase. So I don't know if they don't like where you contribute to your church or the political candidates you're giving to. You don't control your own money. And now you add to that the wild spending, the spending where they just seem to print it up. Oh, we need another $20 billion for Ukraine, boys. Print it up and let's get it out the door. Now seems to me to be the perfect time. If you send for your free gold guide, which you get, by the way, at freegoldguide.com/stone. You'll find out a lot of important things. You'll find out how to protect and grow your retirement savings, and that can include your IRA. Folks are sometimes confused about this, but you can get a gold IRA, perfectly proper. You're going to find out which precious metals offer a strong defense against the de-dollarization and the current inflation. You'll find out how Colonial Metals offer safe and effective retirement plans to optimize your assets and savings. And you'll find out how simple it is to safeguard your retirement tax-free and penalty-free. You're actually taking advantage of a perfectly legal IRS loophole to protect your financial future tomorrow. This is a tremendous little booklet. Tells you everything you could possibly want to know about gold and silver. And again, you get it by going to freegoldguide.com/stone. The folks at Colonial will be happy to talk to you about your personal situation and help tailor something that works specifically for you. Folks, go check out Colonial Metals Group. I think you'll be most glad you did. Paul Stone, thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.